3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Oddwicked.
This is Merps. Expansion is still fairly far away, but we are playing Battlegrounds. We have been playing a little bit of Battlegrounds.
We've been playing a lot of Battlegrounds, all right? I'm up at 3 a.m. talking to you about Battlegrounds as we're both playing at the same time.
That's true. We've been playing a decent amount. I have been playing not as much as a lot of other people, but I've been watching a lot of streams. Everyone has at least tried it out to some extent, but all of your favorite arena streamers like Dreads, Shady, Colin, Sunglitters, they've all been streaming it. Even Hafu has jumped back onto the train. I know. She came back, played a little bit, got top 10, and then I think she's back to TFT now. At least now.
Well, until they update it, at least. Because keep in mind, this is so if you don't know what's happening right now, you just tuned into this episode, you don't really play the game, or you're just actually playing the arena, and you missed the fact that arena is no longer a button on the home screen. They literally force you to first look at Battlegrounds before you can pick the arena now. Despite arena starting with A and Battlegrounds starting with B, Battlegrounds is on the left side. It's coming first, and arena is second. So the arena is now the game mode that is the most difficult to get to. It's about as difficult to get to the arena as like practice mode.
Yeah, just about. So Tavern Brawl gets to survive on the front page, while arena is right next to Battlegrounds, which right now is not the worst spot to be because Battlegrounds is the hottest thing, right? That's what everyone is playing. So not the worst to have your shop be right next to the hottest, trendiest spot in Hearthstone. Although really, this is the high point of Battlegrounds because it's new, it's shiny. Not everyone has it right now. Everyone's trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, for the arena, we know that
this is literally the lowest arena has ever been on Blizzard's priority list. They just, took apart a lot of their efforts at making arena a better experience with buckets and whatever. They're probably retooling something. We don't know what it is. We don't know if it's going to come out with the next expansion, but it certainly is not coming out this month. They even took away classic and basic cards in the arena. They're clearly in full experimental mode. They upped the class card rates. Like if you listen to the last episodes, we were talking about how the class card rate has been the same as it was in dual class arenas, which is 3x normal, and that's like a little bit higher than it normally is. And people were feeling the games get a little samey, power levels are a bit high. I thought it was okay. I didn't have too many complaints about it, but Blizzard was very responsive to those complaints, and now the class card offering rates are down again. It's I don't know if it's completely gone, but it apparently took a serious hit. I'm going to be honest, I haven't played a single game of Arena since these changes kicked in 3 days ago, maybe 4 days ago. Blizzard also has not confirmed.
I have not either.
Neither has Merps, and Blizzard has not confirmed one way or the other whether they've made any changes yet to the Arena game mode. So we're just going off of what people on Reddit are saying. See, if you're on Reddit and you're listening to this podcast, you are actually our source. It's just it's circular. It just circles. But we'll play the Arena Coupe after this, and that'll be both of our first Arena game in this meta. So I can't talk to you much about what this meta is. The cards haven't changed. The class win rates haven't changed. The Paladin Warlock dominance has leveled off a little bit. It was like 58% Paladin. Now it's like 56% on HS Replay. But still, that means it's a pretty terrible meta all in all when it comes to balance. And it means that micro adjusts haven't kicked in yet. Because whenever Blizzard kicks in micro adjusts, there's like drastic shifts, especially to the top class. Like we would expect Paladin at highest to be 52%, 52.5% if they actually got hit with micro adjust nerfs.
Yep. So look, if you are planning to play the arena between now and the expansion, just know that the sort of fiesta that you were taking part in before with all the class cards, that's been tempered. We have not gone back to the original, like the sort of neutral stone that was prevalent at the very, very beginning of the dual class arenas meta. But that's kind of where we're at. In all honesty, you guys could just take an extended nap until the expansion comes out, because in my opinion, sort of, what's the point?
That's where I'm at too. That's why I'm like, I already announced this. I have one arena run that I drafted a paladin. Like, I wanted it to be the most scumbag paladin because I know they don't retire decks until the new expansion comes out, and I want to wait for them to nerf everything down and then just come in and wreck everyone right before the release of the expansion. But the paladin I drafted wasn't very good. Um, it wasn't very good for the last meta. I'm sure it's a pretty good paladin for this meta, right? Yeah. And I'm sure it'll be even better paladin whenever they kick in micro adjust. So I'm still sitting on that run. I'm 0-1 right now, but I'll finish that run and not play any more arena until the expansion comes out. But in case you're worried, this is the Lightforge Podcast. One, we still have Arena Coops, which is going on YouTube every week as usual, and we stream it on Sundays, and we will be playing the arena there. And the podcast will be... So we're going to talk about Battlegrounds and maybe like general stuff on the expansion for the next episode as well. And then afterwards, they're going to start releasing cards for the next expansion. So the Lightforge Podcast will kind of go back to normal. And once the expansion comes out, we'll be playing a ton of Arena again. But overall, like, I think this podcast is going to include both Arena and Battlegrounds with going forward, assuming that Blizzard keeps updating Battlegrounds too. It's gonna focus on Arena, but also like chime in a little bit with Battlegrounds, because I feel like I'm going to play Battlegrounds at least casually, even as we focus on Arena, at least for the near future. Like, I don't know. Well, how would you rate Battlegrounds? How would you rate? Let me ask you two questions. One, how would you rate your expectations for Battlegrounds based off of BlizzCon? And how would you rate your actual experience in Battlegrounds in this closed beta?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about this last week. My expectations for Battlegrounds was pretty freaking low. Like, pretty low, I would say. I was at like a 2 or 3 out of 10.
Yep, I was at 3 or 4.
Yeah, I played it a decent amount. I think I played around how many runs? Maybe like 20 runs.
Okay, I played about double what you played then.
Yeah, I played about 20 runs, and it's a good product. It's good. It's fun. The strategy is kind of deceptive, right? A lot of people were joking that it's just a mass hysteria simulator, which in some ways it is, but there's a decent amount of strategy, and there is a reason that, for example, Crip was able to sort of shoot his way up from 4K to 6.5K in a matter of half a day on Ranya's account, right? Like, there are definitely ways to distinguish yourself, to really kind of like separate yourself skill wise from everyone else, and I find it fairly fun. I like what they're doing. There's a lot of things I think needs to be improved, and
it's horribly unbalanced right now. To start off, but we are in beta. We are in closed beta. We're entering open beta on Tuesday. And if you want to play Battlegrounds, that's when you can get your hands on that without giving Blizzard any money, doing any pre-orders, going to BlizzCon, none of that stuff. You can just get access to it starting on Tuesday.
Yep. So I think the product right now, I would say for me, it's like a 7 out of 10. My expectations were like a 2 or a 3, and right now it's about a 7, which is pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
I think I'm with you. I expected a 3 or a 4, and I think right now it's a 7. What really impressed me about this, so I'm going to give you the background of my experience with auto battlers. I saw someone play auto chess once. It confused the hell out of me. I haven't seen anyone play TFT. Like, I haven't even watched a single game of TFT. I watched half of a run from Trump, I think, for Hearthstone Battlegrounds. And then I just jumped into Battlegrounds. And afterwards, I've watched maybe like half runs from like 2 other people. So I have watched a total of like 1 hour of Battlegrounds and a total of less than 1 hour of other auto battlers. And I have read very little about strategies for any of this stuff. I've talked to Merps a little bit, but not like too in depth of a strategy discussion on this. And he was on the stream on Friday night giving me tips. So what I've done so far, if you watch our YouTube, you'll see me upload my entire journey on Battlegrounds. The very first run is already up on YouTube, a little intro by me, and that was the run that got me from 3,600 rating. So you start at 4,000 rating. So I'd already dropped a bit from just like roping all the time and literally having no idea what the rules are. Like I'm talking like I'm fresh into this game, right? Like I didn't want my experience to be sullied by like really like knowing what's going on, right? I'm not entering here as like pro player or like anything. I'm entering here as like I don't know. I'm just a dude. I just downloaded the game. Let's play. What's up, right? I didn't even talk to many people about it. So I wanted a pure experience. So I dropped very quickly. So my first win was at 3,600. I went from 3,600 to 3,800. And I think I like I got back above 4,000 like very quickly. I am now hovering around 4,700 to 4,800, somewhere in between there. And yeah, that's but from this very fresh perspective, like obviously we're huge Hearthstone vets and very good at Hearthstone Arena, but from this overall fresh perspective, in case you also don't give a shit about auto battlers and you know aren't really tuned into this stuff, it's fun. And I was expecting, because it's called auto battler, and because this is a dumbed down version of an auto battler, I just expected it to be very low on skill, and it is still like I think like I can't foresee a top end of this game being more skillful than Arena. Like I can't. Just because like you're being thrown less variables than you are in the Arena. And Arena makes you make way more decisions than in the auto battler scenario, and you can get better reads, at least right now. Maybe they'll end up giving more information and things so that you can get better reads in the Battlegrounds. But I think the top end of the game is still going to be limited, but it's a lot higher than I gave it credit for in the beginning. Like without playing the game, once you sort of know what the game is like about, you're like, okay, there's a decent amount of rock paper scissoring in the end game with a little RNG thrown in for your decision making. There's quite a few very important decision making moments on whether to upgrade or whether to re-roll or how to like take care of your inventory, where you have to assess the odds in the mid game.
Yeah,
and I can see how, like, if you look at the leaderboard right now, they have a live leaderboard for this, which they do not have for Arena. Arena right now is on like a 2-month trailing period for leaderboards. It's just full of names you know, and probably like half the names that you don't know, you either don't know them, but they're actually like pro players or like streamers or something, or they're like Smurf accounts of pro players or streamers. So the people who are really good at this game, they are at the top, and part of it is probably because they can play more than most other people. But I think there is a lot of skill in this game in the top end, and we'll go over some of that more later in this episode. But that's where I'm starting from, right? Like, I'm not gonna sit here and talk to you as if I'm an expert at Battlegrounds. My rating right now is 4,700 something. My rating as of a few days ago was 3,600. Hopefully my rating next week when I talk about this will be 5,000, like 300 or 400 or something. And my goal is to end before December 10th, to end in the top 200.
I think that's a good goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also we're not really sure when they're going to reset the rankings, because I think they will reset it at some point.
Mm-hmm. That's fine though. I'm not making enough progress that I'd be upset about them resetting my 4,700 progress.
Yeah, that's true.
The progress I make is in myself.
Thanks. Thank you, Miss Frizzle. Anyways, that's great. So yeah, I remember I spoke with you last week, and you were like, "Ugh, I don't know. This thing seems like very unskillful." And I was like, "No, there's a decent amount of skill to it." And that's what I like about it. It is very subtle. So this is a game mode in which, kind of similar to Arena, I think a lot of people might look at it and they'll just be like, ugh, like I can't play this. It's too frustrating. It's too RNG. It's only about who gets the mechs first, who gets the light fang first, blah 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 blah, who gets the early pairs and all of that. And it's like, oh, and if I don't roll AFK, if I don't roll Toki, if I don't roll this or that, I'm at a huge disadvantage. And I think it's easy to get into that. I see chat in quite a few channels talk about this. But no, there's quite a lot of things you can do to sort of steady yourself. And in arena, it's a lot of that is pretty similar. Like if you're going for a leaderboard run,
Yeah.
maybe you're stuck with the three worst classes. Okay, let's try to get like 8 or 9 wins with that, right? You're not shooting for the 12 exactly, but with your knowledge of the class, with your knowledge of how to tempo effectively, and good reads, good management of your deck, like you do in arena, you can really mitigate the losses and kind of go for the win. So I am currently 50. I'm over 5,300.
And
And
what is your preview? You also never played Auto Battlers.
I've never played Auto Battlers. I've watched, and I've had the kind of benefit of being able to watch some people
How
who.
many hours would you say you watched of non Hearthstone Auto Battlers, and how many hours of Hearthstone Battlegrounds?
Okay, so non Hearthstone Auto Battlers, I probably watched like actively watched like 2 hours. And then
Okay.
sometimes I'll have, for example, Hafu stream on in the side. I always have streams on no matter what I'm doing as just like a background noise kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I have like Hafu or Toast, if they're playing that stuff. When other people like Collins or Dreads were playing every now and again, I just like check up on it. But I don't understand any of that. Like, I don't understand if you put me in TFT, I would have no idea what the units do. I actually still don't have any idea of really how the game plays.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's how I
You're
feel
like,
about Battlegrounds.
yes, your lack of understanding is my lack of understanding. Yes, yes, yes. So yeah,
Okay, and in Battlegrounds, how many hours have you watched?
I watched a decent amount. But once again, I think we have to differentiate between like active watching and just putting it on the side, right? If we're putting it on the side, I have watched so many hours.
Like
But
a hundred?
actively, I think I watch Shady stream actively the most,
Mm-hmm.
just because he explains it really well. He's one of the best people to explain this stuff. And his stream, I've watched like a good maybe 4 hours, 4 hours plus, just like actually sitting there watching, listening to him talk, and trying to anticipate what his move is. Because Shady right now is top 50 in EU, so
Mm-hmm.
he's a great person to learn from. And then I see how my decisions would differ from his. But I started playing sort of before I really watched significantly. Like I started playing, I think, after I had a basic understanding of what these things do. And I've had about 20 runs, and I just checked my stats. So I must have a bit more than 20 runs because I've been keeping track. I think out of this, I have 24 runs. So
Mm-hmm.
out of 24 runs, I have 20 top four finishes and 10 first place finishes. And I'm at 53-17.
And
And I think I'm like still sort of.
and you're still climbing.
I'm still climbing. Yeah, yeah, I'm still climbing, and I'm still streaking upwards. I can try to make a push for like top 200, because if you guys don't know the ranking point system, they try to determine whether or not you're still too good or you're too bad for the current spot that you're in. So if it believes that you're sort of at where you're at, you kind of get stuck. You kind of get stuck there.
So let me,
But
yeah, this is how the ranking system works from what I can tell, because Overwatch has the same freaking ranking system, and
yeah,
I have done a whole freaking study of the Overwatch ranking system. Um, so you're basically in effectively placement matches in your first few matches. They don't say call them placement matches, but you are. and you get 200 points for wins, and you lose 200 points for like losses. Like if you get first place or eighth place, and from there, like assuming that you're doing well, right? Assuming that you know how to play the game, and most people playing this game don't know how to play the game, which is probably what's going to happen on Tuesday. You are going to streak, and when you're streaking, you like each win is worth somewhere between like 3 and like 6 wins normally, and each loss or like placing middling or whatever is not going to have much impact on your score until you stabilize, which is the point in which you start getting a couple losses in with your win. Like we're talking like 7th place finishes, 8th place finishes, or you like struggle and you get like 4th or 5th place finishes for like a few games. Then your streak ends, and when your streak ends, you're where you're normal. You can always go on a streak, but that involves like some combination of luck and skill, right? You got to look at like top 1 or top 2 finishes a couple times, and I'm sure they're still tweaking the system. Like this is a totally black box system that they don't, and they can't, right? It's a really complicated system. They can just generally describe what it does, and they haven't even done that. So they can tweak it at any time without telling us. So if you're like Merps and you know vaguely how to play the game, and then you get better at it, and then you play the game, you can get up like really fast.
Right.
Assuming you don't suffer like terrible luck.
A lot of the skills that you use in Arena, I actively bring over here. First of all...
Wait, what? There are no skills in the Arena applicable to this. Battlegrounds is not even like... By the way, so the first misconception about Battlegrounds, or auto battlers, you may think it's a turn-based game because it's a Hearthstone game and there are turns. So you think it's a turn-based game. It's not a turn-based game. It's an APM-based game. It's a game where you have to think, react super, super quickly, and then click a lot of things all the time. Like, not during the actual battles. You don't do shit during the actual battles. But after the battles, you're, like, racing against the clock. In my first, like, I want to say, even, maybe less so now, my first 20 runs, at least 12 runs, I was roped more than once per game on average. Which means, not that, like, I made a suboptimal decision because it was roping, but as in, like, I didn't get to spend all my resources. Or, like, I clicked something and I dragged it somewhere and I thought it worked, but it didn't, and the game undid my actions because I didn't get it in on time. Like, that kind of roping. That just, like, ends your game right there, right?
It still happens to me. It still happens to me, and I think one of the 4th or 5th place finishes I had was directly due to that. But for...
It's terrible. They don't give you enough time to, like, think through. And I'm thinking, I know that I'm thinking at a super basic level right now. Like, I am not a good player, and I am not a player who knows how to be a good player, and I'm just, like, not able to pull it off. I have no idea what it takes to be a good player, because I haven't watched streams. I'm, like, trying to figure out strategies for myself. I never like to... I know it's weird talking about this, because, like, I'm a streamer. I'm sure people who, tune into us generally like watching, like, good players play stuff, but I don't like doing that until I've already banged my head against the wall a whole ton of times, and I have the entire foundation of what I think the game is and how the physics of the game works. And then I'll go out and watch some people and see how they interpret the physics and work that into my own physics. What I never want to do is go and watch someone and be like, Trump is really good. I'm going to adopt his physics because clearly it works, right? And then I'm going to be a Trump-like player and then evolve from there. I don't like doing that. Nothing wrong with it, but I like to make my own foundations, right? I'm a philosophy major. I literally break things down into true false statements, ones and zeros, and built my entire ethical system and my entire like life philosophy up from the ground up. I do that with everything I do, and playing games is no different.
Everyone has preferences, and preferences are fine, but if you watch someone at the beginning and if you mistake their preferences for facts or for a rule, that's what you don't want to do, right?
But I don't even want to get into their head at that point, because I know I'm so vulnerable in the very beginning because I have no idea what's going on, and they do. So I don't even want to start thinking like Trump. Like, how do I be a better player, right? You think like the people who are like better than you. That's a easy way to become a much better player. But I don't want to do that in the beginning, because if I do, then my starting framework is someone else's. And I miss out on what I can discover in the game, even though it'll take me a much longer time and I will suck for like much longer than if I did it the other way.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the what was it? Actually, let's not. What do you want to talk about?
What
I was like,
I want to make a point. So okay, let's start fresh, right? Like pretend
Sure.
you're like me. If you already know auto battlers, you'll just jump right in and you'll see the differences, and then you have to learn all the units, all the heroes, and you'll get a feel for it. There's no other like way to do it. Like just make sure you study all the units first and know how the tribals work, because it's very tribe based. Like you go mechs, or you go demons, or you do whatever. And then then figure out what all the heroes do, so that you can start looking at your matchups. I've barely started doing the look at my matchups thing because I don't have enough time.
Right.
Like if you don't have enough time, you don't have enough time to scout, because you can't scout while the battles are happening because they don't let you. Like they just take away all the information when the battle's happening. You only get to scout when you're during the time that you can make moves. So you have to be done making your moves before you can go scout, or you scout first and then make your moves. But if you don't have enough time to make your moves in the first place, right? Like imagine your APM is so like, I'm gonna make a StarCraft analogy. You know how people send one of their like SUVs like out, and they like to scout what your opponent's doing, right? And like so part of what you have to do in the early game, because there's less things to click, you like manage two parts of the map at once, your opponent's base and your base, and your scout just runs around, maybe starts attacking one of their SCVs for a while, or like attacking one of their building things, just like harass them a little. Because if you have like 100 APM, it only takes you like 20 to run your base. Like what are you doing with your other APM, right? In the early game. So that's what people do. The scouting, the information, is actually worth so much that everybody does that, even though you are literally losing resources, because your SUV, your resource gatherer, is not gathering resources. He's off scouting, right? So you're losing one unit of resource gathering. You're like literally like 10% to 15% slower at gathering resources in the early game, just to scout for information and to disrupt your opponents a bit and get some of that value back.
But everyone does it because it is overwhelmingly worth it for them.
Everyone does it, except I never did it.
Yeah.
I never did it because I don't have 100 APM. I have 30 APM, and it was really taxing on me to manage my base, which required like 20 something APM, and then send a scout out. Now keep in mind, I was a top league player in StarCraft 2, with my own unique strategies and all that stuff, before like in the season 1 or whatever. Like that back then was Diamond League. I think they have fancier leagues now, but back then Diamond League was tops. And I got into it without like spending too much time on the game, I think. And one of the things I cut out in the very beginning is the scouting thing, because I'm like, I don't have enough APM to do the scouting thing. I'd rather have my 10-15% extra early game resources. And because I don't have good APM, I also know that I can't do more than 2 base. I don't even want a 2 base. I'm already losing once I start 2 basing. So I prefer to just single base it and get whatever resources I can from that. But anyway, my point is, you got to think of this Battlegrounds thing not as a game of Hearthstone, where you have a turn, you make your decisions in the turn, and then your opponent has a turn, makes their decisions, and then you do. It's not a turn-based game. It's an APM game. You are playing StarCraft, and then you are watching stuff happen. And then you are playing StarCraft again, and then you're watching stuff happen.
Here's the best analogy. In Hearthstone Arena, you ever have those turns in which you think, okay, do I play the Jeweled Scarab for a draw, or do I play the Tome for a draw? And then afterwards be like, okay, and then what am I doing after that? You know there's stuff after that, but you're not sure. Multiply that by like 6 or 7 times in one turn.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do that. So you're like, okay, Jeweled Scarab,
that's a really good analogy.
Or the or the Tome, and then you have to consider like, all right, well, what can I get from that? And you should have somewhat of a plan, because you can't say, okay, I'm definitely going to do this without a plan, right? You have to tell yourself, it's like, okay, I'm playing the Jeweled Scarab because I'm trying to look for this. This is my game plan. Or I'm playing the Tome because I need to do that. And then as soon as that happens, because you can never anticipate every possible outcome, after you play the first Tome, you have to ask yourself the question again. It's like, okay, do I play another Jeweled Scarab, or do I play the Tome? Now with this additional information, right? And with the additional information that, well, maybe I cast a couple spells from that Tome because they were pretty good. That's exactly the decision making that you have to do in Battlegrounds over and over again.
On each very turn. Like 30 seconds is what you get. You get a much shorter rope than even a regular turn of Hearthstone, and you have a lot more decisions to make. And all of those decisions have a crap ton of RNG attached to all of them. Like,
Yeah.
so if you have no plan, you're not going to make it. Like, I had no plan at the beginning. I didn't know how to play the game. And so I was
That's
rolling
why
every
you're at
single turn.
3,600.
Yeah, it was terrible because I'm just like, I'm not given any time to think about even my most basic things because I didn't know deep strategy, right? I wasn't trying to develop deep strategy. I was just trying to survive and get units on the board and upgrade them. That's all I was doing. And like find a good spot to like upgrade my tavern. That was the like complete basics. I didn't do anything initially in the very beginning, right? Like someone's like, I think someone pointed out that you can scout your opponents a little. I'm like 0% chance of doing that. I have no APM for this. Like I'm gonna build it into my thing eventually, or learn how to scout on my downtime when I get a turn done early or whatever. But that's like way advanced stuff for me. Now, as you get better at the game, there's two things that rises, right? Not just Battlegrounds, but any kind of game that involves quick thinking, which this game is. Again, this is not a turn-based game. This is StarCraft. This is an APM quick decision-making game. So what you do is two things rises. One is you're getting better at the game, so you're making decisions quicker. So let's say it took you 2 minutes to make all the decisions. If you were given an unlimited rope, it would take you 2 to 3 minutes to make those decisions. Now it'll take you like 30 seconds to make those decisions. Great. But something else that rises is your recognition of another level of strategy. And that's going to keep going, assuming the game has depth, right? That's what we mean by depth. It's just not the super basics. So, presumably, the game has depth. So far, I have not run out of depth to dig, but that's because I'm working at a very basic level here. So I'm always challenged by the game right
now. Yes, that is a great way to put it. Oh, God. Yeah, if you guys want to see a great example of this, you can check out my Twitter, all right, Merps4248. I included a gem from Adukta.
I'm not even kidding you, it was literally the first time I had owned a bear. That was like bear. That was like, I don't know.
This was you like 30 runs in.
This was like 30 runs in. I had just never gone that deep because mostly I don't like I didn't really like beasts. I try to focus on mechs and murlocs and demons, and then I dropped demons because they were hard to work with. And so it was really just like mech and beasts, and then I experimented with trying to like do the mixing thing. That's actually like probably the best strategy. But it's really hard, and I'm still like working on that. But eventually I started trying to play with beasts a little bit more, and that was the first time I got a mama bear. And I realized that I had spent the entire game putting the mama bear on the far left. Next to my wolf.
That's what a mom does. Protects her kids, right?
I had the wolf on the far left, and the bear second to the far left.
I mean, this is Blizzard's fault for not, having the mama bear really protect. I mean, what kind of good mama bear waits for all of her babies to die and then? God, it's terrible. Anyways, so we obviously like this game mode, and there is a decent amount of strategy to it. I am just starting to really realize it, and I think what is propelling me. So take it from. You're not talking to someone who is like, Hafu crypt levels of good.
Well, but you're probably like top 200 in actual skill. You just haven't finished your climb yet. Like,
I haven't finished my climb. No,
you still have the bonuses. You're not stabilized yet. Like, I think even if you don't learn anything more about this game from here on out, you'd probably stabilize like either right outside of the top 200 or right inside the top 200.
Yeah, my score still swings. I think the game identifies it's like, whoa, your stats are not like stabilizing yet, because I'm making first place about 40% of my runs. So I think the game is just like, okay, you're like, that's pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. If it was just pure RNG, you shouldn't get first 40% of the time. But I also have like a couple of 8th places. One of them, I try to get Shutterwalk Pogo to work. It did not.
I tried to do non-Shutterwalk Pogo once. That did not work either.
That definitely does not work.
I didn't get 8th though.
I got 8th. Well, I faced AFK 3rd.
Oh yeah.
And she had so she chunked me for 12 on that turn. Mm-hmm. She got Khadgar with the security rover.
Oh. Yeah.
I was watching. I was just like, because my very first hit, I saw it queue up. I was like, okay, I'm either going to take like basically just very little damage, like 3 damage, or I'm taking a whole ton of damage. And it hit the rover first. I'm like, okay, so I'm taking a ton of damage.
So I
uh,
actually tracked myself. I was bitching to Merps about this last night. I faced AFK on turn 3 or 4 more than 50% of my games, and also more than 50% of my games I have faced AFK again on turn 5 or 6 after facing them on 3 or 4.
Adulton would not stop complaining to me about
Because
this.
you
Oh my
can't
gosh.
win against it. I've won like one game against AFK on turn 3. Like otherwise, you just like take a loss, right? Like, and you'd lose a whole bunch of health, and it skews the entire thing of what you're trying to do. And I'm trying to like learn from the game, and I can't judge it based on results. And if you guys know me, you know I work 2 ways. I work math, and then I work by results. There's nothing in the middle for me. Like most people work somewhere in the middle. They don't like to judge purely by results because they think like there's like, you know, like if your process is good, the results are like just RNG and whatever. But I'm like, well, then you run it enough times, and then your results should speak for themselves because your goal is the results, it's not the process. Unless you're trying to like sell the process, right? Then your goal is the process, but normally your goal is the results. So anyway, it eliminates half of my learning to like not be able to evaluate my results. Like,
Yep.
so okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk to everybody about that was jumping into Battlegrounds with no idea what to do in this game mode is don't think of it as a turn-based game. All of your turn-based game, like, thinking and whatever, none of it applies here. Strategy applies, just like strategy applies in StarCraft. You would never say StarCraft is not a strategy game. It's a real-time strategy game, right? Battlegrounds is a real-time strategy game, despite the fact that all the fighting happens with you having zero control over it. It's a real-time strategy game. You cannot pause, and you are not given enough time to make strategic decisions. Without, like, you know, to make perfect strategic decisions, let's say. Yeah. And so back to my 2 bars, right? So one is the time it takes me to think through things is always decreasing. And the things I'm realizing that I should also be thinking about or that will make me a better player is always increasing. And so there's still a battle being waged right now. And usually, like, it's deceptively simple. Let's just put it that way. Because usually in a game that looks the way Battlegrounds looks, you figure it out in the first hour or two, maybe the first 4 or 8 hours, and then you know what's going to happen even if you haven't perfected your skills yet. Like, there's no depth after that. You just know how to get better, and then you train yourself to get better. Here, there's still so much depth that I know that I haven't hit. And then there's probably more depth that I don't even know exists that I haven't hit.
Because and it comes out in the conversation. So we've been talking about Battlegrounds a lot, and one of like I see that you're always trying to get me to simplify. It's like, okay, what are you doing differently than I'm doing, right?
Right. Especially in early turns, right? When it's like literally just like you have options, you have a multiple choice.
Yeah, and but for me, I'm just like, okay, I can explain turn 1 and turn 2, and then turn 3, and then after that, I'm like, oh man, it's like after that point, I'm like risk assessing, I am scouting, I'm doing all of this stuff, I'm thinking of my game plan. Like at that point, I'm really just taking what the game gives me, right? And this is why I said earlier on that it does feel like Arena in that way, or one of the only reasons that I think I'm like 5300 and still climbing is because what I'm doing is I'm taking in all the lessons that I've learned through the arena as well. So at this point, I'm doing a little bit of scouting because I think I have the bandwidth in my head to do it. But you have a certain game plan, right? And you execute. And as long as you think one turn ahead, you're going to be okay. Like if you are on, for example,
Oh yeah, turn planning. I started turn planning after my like 10th run. I was like, I think I have enough time now to focus and think about one turn ahead most of the time, rather than just like trying to struggle to complete my turn.
Yeah. So, for example, one of the things that you find out in Battlegrounds is, you start with 3 gold and then you buy a minion, right? Turn 1 is so simple for people. You buy a minion and then you just face off against another person. And then turn 2, which you're on 4 gold, you can either buy a minion, reroll, or you can upgrade. turn 3 when you have 5 gold. That's one of the awkward turns for people. It's awkward because every minion costs 3. So you have this 2 gold floating around and you want to use it. Not using that 2 gold is essentially like playing a 3 drop on 4 when everyone else is like playing a Yeti, right?
Yeah.
It's bad. You're I'm not saying that you're gonna lose because of it, like purely because of it, but you're not great. You're kind of behind. So you need to make something of that turn. So for example, when you're on 4 gold, you're just like, okay, well, maybe I should pick up like this Morocco Tide Hunter, or maybe I should get something with a token so I can sell the token off, and I can buy 2 things so I can keep the tempo on turn 5. It's this stuff, small things to think about, and then later on you can think about econ as well in terms of, okay, so I can reroll this many times, and there's sort of that tap last kind of mentality as well, because you want to keep count of all of your gold, in terms of the gold that you actually start the turn with, and it's like once you sell off the Houndmaster, sell off
It's a lot of math that you have to do very, very quickly.
Very,
and yes,
very
the
quickly.
math is just adding 1. Very often, you just have to add 1 a lot. But it's really hard to add 1 many, many times. And then keep track of like 3 separate pools of numbers and you're adding and subtracting 1 from.
It's very true.
And
it's
you
like,
only
okay,
have 30 seconds each turn to do it all. I mean, you get more time later on, but still, it's never enough.
So, just by doing all of that, I think I have been able to keep my head above water and get these incremental advantages that beat other players. So it's like you see my end game, and then you see their end game, and it's just like in the arena in which you see me at the end with a board, and some players are just like, wait, like
how'd that happen?
Why do you have like an extra 16 mana's worth of stats at the end? I'm like, because I play turn 2 a little bit better, because I play turn 3 a little bit better. Same exact thing here. And
so
if you
go ahead.
Yeah, so if you turn plan well, it's like you're able to really influence your results, and you're able to sort of try to shoot for number 1 as a result, which should boost your score significantly.
Yeah. So this turn planning thing is definitely a skill. I think at some point I'm gonna make a list of skills, because like, we have the Lightforge like .com for the tier list in the arena. I don't know if this game needs a tier list, because at first I heard about this game, I'm like, oh, I'm going to see if we can algorithm it to make it into a tier list. And as I play the game, I'm like, there's no point for a tier list in this game. Like,
there isn't.
People have tier lists right now, really just to tell, like, okay, there's probably a use for tier lists for heroes, right? But just like we don't make tier lists for heroes in the arena, we would make tier lists for cards, because for heroes the tier list it changes based on what the card pool is, and that's all. It's kind of pointless to make a tier list for cards in this game. There are just like cards that suck, and then cards that are good, and then cards that are broken. That's it. There's no point in differentiating more than that.
At the point in which you're picking a lot of these cards, it's just like how, let's say, you can never draft Yeti. You can only pick Yeti at some points in the game. So it's just like, well, then it's different, right? Then it depends on your board. Then it depends on what health you're at, which is like the same considerations that we're talking about for Battlegrounds, like the same exact considerations.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it really doesn't lend itself to having a tier list for cards. But I may write a guide, not this next week. I'm still putting stuff together, but maybe the week after that, if I feel like I'm in a good place, about like getting into like starting from a beginner's perspective, like literally starting from zero, and how to think about getting to the place. I'll definitely do it if I end up in the top 200, and I haven't done it before then. But I might do it anyway, just to put my thoughts down on paper, because that helps me learn too. When I have to, like, when I force myself to write a guide, that's why I like writing guides. Like I used to write Civ 5 guides on like weird stuff I did with strategies. It like forced me to like analyze my own thinking, and then I go back and test a couple things, and I don't know. It helps me learn to teach. So okay, you were talking about like, I think some of the stuff that's really more advanced, because there's stuff that, like, all the things you're talking about right now, I feel like I'm like just getting to the point where I'm doing it all the time, right? I'm not necessarily doing it well, but I know I'm supposed to be doing it, and I at least make some attempt to do this kind of stuff every turn.
Yeah.
But I'm like 40 runs in, and I'm just getting to the point where I'm like actually doing that on every turn. I probably started doing it or trying to do it here and there after like 10 runs or 20 runs. But before any of that, and this is what I don't see one of these out there. I've been scouring Reddit and whatever in the last couple days, trying to look for information and see what resources are out there. Someone, I hope it's not me, because I'm like so not an expert on this. Someone needs to write like a turn-by-turn guide, because people write guides for this for Battlegrounds right now about like tier lists, or like these are the good cards you should pick, these are the bad cards, or like these are the good heroes, these are the bad heroes, or like mechs are good, demons are bad. That's useful information, and it's very quickly and easily digestible. But what'll help you a lot more is like literally like, what do you do turn 1? What do you do turn 2? What do you do turn 3? What do you do turn 4? Like, what are you thinking about in each of those turns? Because the game is actually very, very structured in the very beginning, right? Like you said, turn 1 always starts the same way. Turn 2 is basically the same. Turn 3 has like 2 possible things you can do, like, maybe 3. Turn 4, you have your big major branch. And then afterwards, you're in 2 totally different worlds. And each turn after that, it just branches crazily after that. But your first 4 turns, and how you should think about them, like, that's the structure that, one, will make sure you finish in the top 4 or at least top 5 every single one of your like early runs. Because people just really, like, this game is so confusing if you don't know what you're doing. Like, people who start at 4,000 will just lose a whole ton of games because they're not playing their first 4 turns right. And the first 4 turns are not hard. Someone just needs to like put succinctly to like tell you what you should think about in each of these turns, and really, I'll try. I'll take a stab at breaking this down, right? Because this game's coming out on Tuesday. Not a good player, but I am above 4,000, and Merps can back me up or contest what I'm saying.
Okay, being above, you start at 4,000.
Yes. So that means I'm better than where you're going to start out with, and you're probably going to fall if you haven't played this game before.
Well, you literally start the game at 4,000.
Yeah, but you can go down. It's not like you just go up. You can go down to like negatives. I saw screenshots. I mean, the guy tried to go down to negatives. He didn't just like happen to be that bad at the game. But
okay, let's not sell that. Let's not sell that.
All right.
Okay.
So turn 1, you have 3 gold, and then each turn you get 1 extra gold, and the amount that it takes to upgrade your tavern decreases by 1. So you have a total. You start at tier 1 minions, and then you keep upgrading your tavern until you get to tier 6. I'm not going to talk about anything that happens after the first 4 turns. Turn 1, you're forced to buy a minion. And yes, this also only applies to heroes that have either a activated power, which you probably aren't supposed to use until later on in the game, definitely not in the first 4 turns. Like, anything that has a cost and has a 1-turn effect only, you shouldn't be using it until later on. And it applies to things that just like you are forced to take a hero that either has a completely passive, pointless ability that you don't have to super alter your strategy for. Like that mech guy, that mech girl is a perfect example of it. Very powerful hero, just all of your mechs have +1/+1, like when you buy them from the shop. That's it. It does not change your strategy, it just means go mechs. Right? It's like super simple. Yeah. Bartendotron, who's quickly my favorite hero in this whole thing, is just, and that actually works differently because it messes with your prices, but that's just a resource guy. All of your upgrades cost 1 less. Like all of your tavern upgrades cost 1 less. Like anything that's like that you're looking at the hero and you're like, this hero probably doesn't change the way I play in the early game, and I'll only get to it later on. Or like the mech girl, this changes the way that I play the game, but it's such a minor way. Like it just like makes one decision for me, right? Like I go Mex, fine. Otherwise, I'm doing the same thing for the game. So this will actually apply to, I would say, 66 to 75% of all the heroes out there. This is not a, like, if you're using AFK, this is not a strategy for AFK, right? But this will apply to most other things. Okay, so turn 1, you have to buy something. You buy a minion, you keep it, it fights, you're done. Turn 2, you have 4 mana, and, sorry, 4 coins, and your upgrade costs 4. So your first choice is either to upgrade your tavern, or to buy a thing. And then, like, have 1 extra coin left over that you can re-roll, or, like, you know, whatever. Like, you can re-roll, set up your next round and freeze it, or you can re-roll for the first one to try to get a better one. If you see something that's really good, like a duplicate of your current minion, and you're doing something like really aggressive strategies would like to do this, right? Like if you're a Murloc strategy or whatever. But if you see a double, you may want to just commit to an early game. But for the most part, what you're going to do is just upgrade. I would say 75% plus of people just upgrade on turn 2. It's kind of it's not a pro strat, but it's an advanced strat to not upgrade on turn 2. Because when you upgrade on turn 2, not only do you immediately have access to minions that outclass your current minions, those minions are actually on about the same power level as your upgraded tier 1 minion. Like, because upgrading doubles everything. So you've doubled your tier, you've doubled your everything. Anyway, my point is you also get 1 extra selection choice when you upgrade your tavern to 2. So tier-wise on your tavern, you're offered 3 choices on tier 1, 4 choices on tier 2, 5 choices on tier 4, and 6 choices on tier 6. So the key upgrades are turned to upgrade your tavern to 2, to 4, and to 6. If you're trying to upgrade to like 3 or 5, like not as like some kind of advanced strategy, you better have something very specific you're going for that's only available in those tiers. So like if you're a beast, like a million amazing beasts come into play on turn 5, on tier 5. If you're Murlocs, the Murloc that buffs everything. So once you have a board of Murlocs, you need your tavern at tavern 3 because that's where the buff guy is. The Cold Light Seer that buffs all your Murlocs. But anyway, for the most part, 2, 4, then 6. And yes, I see in the chat people are like 6 is not a upgrade because 6 or whatever. Yeah, 6 is super end game. Like you can get it in other ways, but those are where your odds don't decrease significantly. Because normally, if you upgrade from tier 1 to tier 2, you would think that your odds of getting your tier 1 minions decrease, right? Because you've added more stuff into the pool. But because you're getting the extra option, they really don't decrease that much. And later on, like when you're upgrading from tier 5 to tier 6, you actually increase your odds of getting all of your minions. Like the odds for getting a tier 5 minion, or a tier 4 minion, or a tier 3 minion, or any tier minions, all go up when you upgrade from Tavern 5 to Tavern 6. Just statistics.
So on that, I'll just add a little bit. If you look at the way the game is just sort of like set up, there is a huge discrepancy in the value of tier 3 minions versus the value of tier 2 and tier 4 minions. 3 is that weird gap in the middle. This is sort of one of the problems with the game right now. If you look at the quality of minions on 2 and the quality of minions on 4, so 2 has a lot of your meaty minions. It's got your rat packs, your amalgams, your hyenas, and lots of your good stuff, like building blocks for builds. 3 has some decent ones. I would say, one of the best 3, like tier 3 minions is probably Cobalt Guardian, which is a staple for a lot of mech decks. But you're actually diluting the pool decently when you go to tier 3. Tier 4, that's like a real good sweet spot because it has tons of the buffs, like tons of good buffs, and tons of like really good minions to help you scale into the late game. So when you're looking at kind of like this turn fighting and all of this stuff, always recognize this gap. It's like if it's not, if you want to go to tier 3, definitely don't stick around in tier 3 for too long. This is general advice, and it's advice
I think
that
you're jumping ahead. I'm trying to stick
Yeah,
on turn
yeah.
2 here.
Yeah. But this is what you wanna think about. Anyways,
Okay.
okay, go on.
You can pick up on that when we get to turn 4, because that's the turn 4 choice, right?
Okay, sure.
So turn 2, you're wondering whether to get to tier 2 or to stay on tier 1. That's why it's almost always correct to go to tier 2. Because even if you want to stick to tier 1 minions, you do suffer a little bit of an odds decrease to get the same tier 1 minions. The tier 2 minions one are better and you probably want them more. But you also don't hurt your odds that much because you're getting an extra slot. So almost everybody's going to upgrade on turn 2. So turn 1 you buy a minion, turn 2 you upgrade. Turn 3 you cannot upgrade. It is the only turn that you are not allowed to upgrade. Unless you're Bartendotron. And you can't upgrade because you only have 5 coins and your upgrade cost is 6. It's just about how they make the game. It's a weird quirk of the game. And this also means it's a turn without choice. So whereas turn 2, you basically don't have a choice. You have to upgrade unless you're doing something really tempo heavy. And by the way, if you go tempo heavy, tempo heavy in this game is like code word for I'm not trying to win, but I also don't want to lose. Because if you go tempo heavy, you commit a lot of resources to the board, and so you're okay in the beginning, and you probably also hurt a lot of people and damage them, so you end the game quicker on the bottom. But you're going to hurt yourself for the late game, because clearly you're using up resources to put tempo out there. Tempo that you're going to replace, because you're limited by board size. So you're going to get no endgame minions if you go tempo, and so when the endgame comes, you're going to be screwed. But, if you have a bad hero, it's not a bad thing to say, like, hey, I'm trying to play for 3rd or 4th. Rather than like, hey, I'm gonna take this bad hero and try to play for 1st and maybe get 8th. Anyway, so where turn 2 doesn't really give you a choice, you should really just upgrade. Turn 3 doesn't give you a choice, literally doesn't give you a choice, and you have to get minions. So you have 5 mana, which means you could pick up 1 minion. Then you either sell your turn 1 minion, or if your turn 1 minion creates 2 bodies, which are the best kind of turn 1 minions, you then sell one more, like there's the smaller of the 2 bodies. So if you get like a Murloc Tidehunter, is my favorite turn 1 minion, you sell the 1/1 Murloc, and now you have 6 coins, right? You have 6 total coins. You're still capped at 5, so you still can't upgrade your tavern. But now you can get 2 things off the menu. And so all of a sudden you have 3 minions, and you're kind of back on track with the tempo people. That's generally what you're supposed to do. You actually don't have that many other choices. If you didn't end up getting a Murloc or an Alley Cat, that's the other one, in turn 1, then you don't really have anything else to do with those 2 extra hanging mana. You just use them to re-roll until you get a really good, one that you like. Assuming you can't have any activated abilities that you can use that for. So that's turn 3. No one plays those 3 turns differently. And that's something that I think would really help a beginner to know. Like, that would have really helped if I knew that that's what was going to happen those 3 turns. And so you really start...
What's up?
Okay, no, nothing. I was reading a Twitch chat. Someone's asking you... Someone thought you could sell on turn 3 and upgrade the tavern. You can't do that. You can only do it if you bank the mana or something through an ability. You can't do it by just selling minions. That's a hero specific thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So then turn
also
4,
that's even if you could, that's suicide. That's actually suicide.
That's not suicide. I do it with Bartendotron all the time. Because Bartendotron allows you to do it.
But so they're selling off their only minion in order to do that.
Oh, okay. That's true.
You get what I mean? No. You have a minion out there. Maybe you have the 2/4 taunt, right? And that's enough. No, that also would literally be suicide if you're doing that to bank on you going into tier 3 and making it up. Anyways.
Okay. So now you're on turn 4. And this is where the first big choice happens, and this is where the branches start happening, and you actually, this is where strategy actually kicks in. So on turn 4, you have 6 coins, and the upgrade cost is 5. So you can upgrade at the upgrade cost, and then you have 1 more mana hanging out, which you can sell some of your minions and get your tier 2 minion, if you have them on the board. or you can just use it to re-roll and then get a head start, right? See if you want to freeze something nice for your tier 3 minion. Or you can not upgrade your tavern and fill up the rest of your board. Board space is a limitation at 7, but at this point you're nowhere near it. So you can definitely add more stuff to your board. So some people upgrade to tier 3, but you only do that if you want specific tier 3 minions that you need to have. I'd say that's usually not the best strategy, but I see a lot of people doing it to try to get the mechs. If you do upgrade, you're actually somewhat incentivized on the next turn to upgrade again, because then you get to turn 4. Because turn 3 is special. It is the only turn you can't upgrade. If you upgrade on turn 4, you can upgrade again on turn 5, and then boom, you're in tier 4, and you can start building your team there. And then if you stabilize, you're at a massive advantage compared to other people who didn't do that. If you stick on tier 3, you're fine also. That's like I consider that the kind of like fail position if I'm not going for anything specific, because you're kind of stuck on tier 3, and tier 3 is really like not that much better than tier 2, and it like you're missing a lot of tempo.
Yeah.
It's not a good place to be. But sometimes you have to do it if you're gonna die otherwise. Like if you can't afford to upgrade again and like not get any minions on your board. And sometimes you just need the tempo. Anyway, that's if you go the upgrade path. The more popular path is to not upgrade and instead get minions, because you have 6 coins and whatever you can sell on the board, which means you could probably get 2 nice tier 2 minions to bolster your ranks. And the next turn, when you have 7 coins, upgrade cost is 4 to get to tier 3. So even if you do want to go to tier 3, you can wait a turn, and then you can get 1 more minion and upgrade to tier 3 for the turn after that, right? That's a turn 5 thing. So I think that's your standard play. If you just want to upgrade up at a normal pace and pick up stuff. But I don't think it's terribly advantageous, because unless you are looking for something specific in tier 3, or you're on the verge of getting it always gets complicated. This game is actually really complicated. It's really hard to describe it.
Really complicated.
Now we're gonna have to talk about like upgrading when you get like by getting 3 of the same cards. Because when you upgrade and you get 3 of the same cards, you jump one more tavern level to get a discover, like a free discover for upgrading your minion on the board. And you consolidate and save board space. So it's like really good. And before you do that, you want to upgrade your tavern so you get the 1 extra. So like if you're at tavern level 3, for example, you hit the upgrade button to spend your turn to upgrade to level 4, and then you do you get your free card, and that's actually going to be in level 5, which is an even better like minion, right? And it's just like a free thing. But yeah. So anyway, option 2 is the normal option, where you kind of delay it. You delay your turn 4 upgrade to the upgrade to tier 3 on turn 5 instead of turn 4, and that's very normal, and you're fine. And then you have your third option, which I think you really like, Merps, which is you just kind of stay on 2. Like you stay on 2 on turn 4, you stay on 2 on turn 5, and then you don't go to 3 until turn 6 or 7. Once you've filled up the board. Because then you get your turn 2 minions, you've upgraded them, you have some like potential cards or whatever. You basically wait. Do you wait until you have a triple before you upgrade to Tavern 3? So that you get a free Tavern 4 minion?
I would say that is definitely it. Like if I'm there, then yes. You know, because at that point, I think it's very common for me to reach that spot, right, where I'm crushing everyone. Because if you stay at 2, you're not losing to anyone.
Yeah,
like your tempo is just the
you're
same.
not gonna lose any health because you have too much tempo. You're losing AFK and no one else.
Mm-hmm. So I stay there, and then once I do get a triple, like I find my triple amalgam, for example, right? That's a really common one. I find my triple amalgam, and then yes, I upgrade for, let's say, 2 gold at that point, right? I upgrade for 2 gold, and then I sort of play the amalgam, get a 4 tier minion. There's rarely any bad 4 tier minions that I can select if I have like a full board, right? Because you're always going to find a buff or just an independently strong minion like a piloted Sky Golem or something. So yeah, and then that is the spike that I need in order to
catch up to like
go forward.
Yeah,
right.
Because you're going to like at that point you're going to replace some of the minions on the board. Like most of the minions on the board right now for you, if you go the slow route, are not endgame minions. Like maybe half of them are.
No, I'll have like a 3/3 Murloc on
Right.
there still, right? But I pick up that Piloted Sky Golem, and suddenly I'm replacing a 3/3 with a Piloted Sky
Yep.
Golem, and I just shot up significantly, and I save gold by not upgrading earlier, right? I'm paying less for the upgrade. So this is the incremental stuff that you are gaining.
Yep.
Like I have not spent as much gold as you guys have in order to upgrade, but I'm reaping the benefits, and I have not sort of been punished for that as well. So that's something that I'd like to do, and obviously it's so different from hero to hero, game to game. But if you can sort of put off that upgrade, it's good. Just because you're playing the law of averages, and tier 3 sucks. Tier 3 just sucks. So what I'm doing is I'm sort of avoiding it. I'm going to tier 3, and immediately I'm like, what am I doing? I'm getting a minion from tier 4.
Yep. And of course you can upgrade to tier 4 the turn after that if you want. Like,
Yeah,
because you already have a tempo board. Like, you don't need tempo at that point. So that's the slingshot move, right? Okay, so that's your starts. Those are your 3 possible starts, and this gets you to tier 3, slash tier 4. We kind of also covered how to get to tier 4. After tier 4, it's a lot more messy about when you get to tier 5 or tier 6. But basically, if you're going for mechs, you don't need to get to tier 5. You need to get to tier 6 at some point. So once you have a good enough board on tier 4, slingshot your way to tier 6. If you're going beasts, you need tier 5. So once you have a decent, like once you find any chance, like get to 5 from 4. Like even if you just like take a round of damage and like lose a round, it's worth it to get to 5, because that's where your wolf is, that's where your like dire horn is, that's where like there's a lot of good beasts there. And there's also even better beasts at 6, so if you can find a way to squeeze 2 turns out, that's even better. That's why beasts are always complicated to me. Like, I don't think my early game, like my neutral early game, is good enough so that I can afford all those upgrades. And I think that's probably the case for most noobs. Like, that's why mechs look easier, because you only have to get to 4 to have a pretty solid game that lasts you to the end game, and it's simpler. Murlocs are a
beasts
little,
are hard.
yeah.
Beasts are kind of hard, and Murlocs just have incredible straightforward early game power,
Yeah.
right? So that's also easy, but Murlocs are kind of tough to scale, and well, your scaling is slower
I
into the
love
big game.
Murlocs. I love Murlocs because the early game is so powerful and straightforward, and you guarantee yourself a floor. Like, you're not going to be 7th or 8th going Murloc, unless something goes like totally weird. And then you just have to know when to slingshot out and convert from Murlocs to something else. Or if you actually have so much space, you can actually get up to the to either tier 4 and get a lot of the poison guys, or to tier 6 and get the Megasaur for adapts. I love Murlocs. That's definitely my favorite tribe. I understand it's not better than mechs, but I like them. Okay, so that was the outline of the early turns and how to think about the game, like from that point on. Most of the strategy does not happen in those like early 4 turns, but you can mess up in those early 4 turns, and even more than that, you can go on a path accidentally that you didn't mean to go on. Like, if you don't have doubles of minions on the board and whatever, like, you may not want to hold back and try to slingshot somewhere. It could take you a long time before you could slingshot back up to 4. That's not the thing. Or, like, if you want certain tier 4 or tier 3 minions, if you don't get there early and they're popular, other people are going to take it. So that's the other thing about this game. It's a shared pool. So if the popular ones, like a Junkbot is hugely popular, especially if you're going mechs. Junkbot and whatever the buff guy, the Divine Shield, Paladin, 2/4.
Annoyotron?
Yeah, no, a bigger Annoyotron. The 2/4, not the 1/2. The 1/2 is Annoyotron.
Oh, Annoyo module.
Oh, Annoyo module, yeah. So the popular ones are Junkbot and Annoyo module for the buffs. And if you try to slingshot your way to tier 4, you're probably not going to get them. And you're going to have to live without them. So it depends on what you want your strategy to be. But you should know these things before you commit to something. Like, so often in the beginning when I tried to have a strategy, I'm like, oh, I'm just re-rolling forever for these things, but I can't get them. Why? Because someone took all of them. And yeah, you always have to think about like three things in addition to the turn planning. And one is, do I have like, are other people, is this popular enough, and how quickly am I to the tier? Because if you get to the tier early, it doesn't matter how popular something is. If you re-roll enough, you'll get them and you can build off them. If you get there late and something's popular, you can't build around them, even if it's like an amalgam, right? And like you upgraded really quickly, so you didn't stay on tier 2 for long. If you don't stay on tier 2 for long, you're not going to get amalgams. Even if you have one amalgam or even two amalgams, you're not going to be able to upgrade your amalgam because you're never going to get that third one, because the other ones are being snapped up by everybody while you're upgrading. So it works both ways. Like if you're looking for the popular tier 1, tier 2 stuff and you've upgraded, you're not going to get them. If you're looking for the popular tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 ones and you're too slow to upgrade, you're not going to get them. So you have to have a plan that works around that. Yeah. That's what I've learned about Battlegrounds in 1 week, less than 1 week of playing.
Pretty cool. No, I think that's good. And you know what? I'm surprised that you have like gotten so into it. You're like stubbornly sort of like being like, oh, I need to get good at this. I love it, man.
Yeah, I mean,
because
it's interesting.
it is interesting. I think it definitely is interesting. It's pretty cool. I'm like actually very excited about all of this, and it's fun. Like, you know what? Us talking about it right now, I'm just like, huh. I kind of wish I were playing right now. It is really, really fun, and I am looking forward to seeing what Blizzard does with it. And a lot of it is going to be about keeping the momentum going, right? We've seen so many, not just game modes, but like games where they start off strong, but people, and especially in society nowadays, it's like if you are not sort of going full speed ahead, you're not going anywhere. So if you're not updating, if you're not bouncing, if you're not doing a lot of this stuff, it's just not going to work out. And once people leave, they're not coming back, right? So that's one of the issues. But for now, great job, Blizzard. It's very fun. It certainly captured a lot of people's attentions. You have sort of converted me, who was very skeptical of this. I'm just like, this is just Tavern Brawl. It's nothing like Tavern Brawl. It's so much better.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that they made it.
Also, you look at the UI on there for the tournament thing, and you're like, you couldn't just make this into a tournament mode too? Like, you have the UI apparently. So that wasn't the problem.
I know, right?
Like,
God.
You couldn't make a limited mode, like sealed or whatever, for the tournament. I think it's all coming. I think it's all coming down the pipeline. I don't know if they're going to, like, I think Arena's going to be left to like kind of like die a slow death, or just be the pure version, right? Like the purest version of what they thought limited mode was, as they add a more diverse selection. Like, I don't think Battlegrounds is the end of, like, that's why they made a thing called modes. If they had no other plans to add to modes, they would not have made modes. They would have just reworked the front page UI to like fit in this extra like premier game mode. The fact that modes exist means that Hearthstone is finally entering into the limited era, where there is a focus on creating fun, more diverse, limited experiences, rather than putting the entire focus on either super casuals or like in Brawl, which you cannot become an expert at, or Constructed, which is the flagship game mode. So I'm excited for that. But again, reiterating my point, Battlegrounds, you could call it a limited format of Hearthstone, but it's not, because it's not a turn-based game. It is StarCraft. It is like APM, timer, quick thinking strategy. It is not a turn-based game. So I'm still excited for whenever they come out with the next turn-based game, or if they make another like significant alterations to how Arena works. And yeah, I think like Blizzard really knocked it out of the park with this Battlegrounds thing.
I agree.
Like just look at all the players who have come back for it, and all the players who have started playing Battlegrounds, whether they are constructed players or arena players. And I'm not going to like this is the conspiracy theorist in me talking, but it may not be a coincidence that the constructed meta and the arena meta sucks right now.
Oh, this is your conspiracy theory, huh?
Because both the constructed meta and the arena meta are in the worst places they've been in quite some time, and they're easily fixable, and Blizzard has not fixed it.
Oh, I see. I see what you're doing here. Okay. This is really truly getting the tinfoil hat out, right?
And it may not be like, they did this on purpose. It may just be that this happened, and are we going to put our resources in fixing our game modes, or are we going to put our resources in launching this new game mode? And if these players are having a crappy experience over there in their old game modes, well, wouldn't they come to this new game mode and check it out? I'm not saying it's like a purely evil Blizzard like doing this master plan, but things could happen. A lot of things seem to synergize in getting people to Battlegrounds. And to their credit, like I don't like forget when they're launching a new product, but I think I get jaded for Hearthstone because it just hasn't happened for a while. But I kind of forget how great Blizzard is at coming up with something that's like intuitively fun, but with a whole crap ton of depth. Like, because I'm looking for it, because I know it's Blizzard and they always make things with like strategic depth, even if afterwards they don't balance for strategic depth and they balance for something like casual. At least nowadays in the most recent games they have. But like, I don't know. They put a lot of effort in Battlegrounds. You could tell
they did,
and there's a big patch coming with the launch of the next expansion that'll add more like more content, like more cards and whatever, and it'll get shaken up. So it's definitely here to stay, and the Lightforge podcast will be extended to talking about Battlegrounds in addition to Arena. I think we're going to be still Arena focused, obviously, because that is our forte. And I don't know, no matter how good, I know personally, no matter how good I get at Battlegrounds, I will be better at the Arena. Because Battlegrounds is not a turn-based card game, and Arena is. And
for now, you are way better at the
arena. For now, I'm way better. But even at my top end, right? Like, give me a year playing Battlegrounds, I'll still be better at the Arena. And if they come out with sealed mode or any other limited mode that is a turn-based card game, I'm gonna be better at that than at Battlegrounds. So yeah, it's still something that I think we should cover, because there is so much depth in this. This is not a tavern brawl. This is not a solo game mode. This is like a competitive multiplayer. I guess we call it limited. It just troubles me to call it limited when it's not turn-based, but it is a limited format. It does use Hearthstone cards in a different way. There is a roguelike element to it. I think it's more fitting into the limited format than it would be to not call it a limited format.
Cool. All right. So, Battlegrounds. We talked over an hour about Battlegrounds.
Yeah. And there's a lot to talk about. And you know what we're going to do next week?
What?
We're going to talk another hour on Battlegrounds because they are not releasing any more cards until almost the end of the next week. So Thanksgiving, like normally the December release comes in like the first week of December. But this year, Thanksgiving, which is the US holiday, rather than happening like the second to last weekend of November, it's happening on the very last weekend of November. In fact, it's like, I think that weekend, that Sunday that ends the weekend, is literally December 1st. So it's pushing everything back compared to where BlizzCon is, because BlizzCon happened at the normal time, a little bit early actually. So now there's this like even more awkward pause. Like normally they announce it and go away for a couple weeks. Now they're gonna announce this Descent of Dragons and go away for 3 weeks. So we're gonna have another almost purely Battlegrounds episode of the Lightforge next week. And after that, we will have information on the expansion, and we will shift to looking forward to the new expansion type deal.
Sounds good.
All right. That's and again, if you're listening to all this and you're like, well, I don't see Battlegrounds. What's Battlegrounds? When can I play it? Tuesday. Tuesday. It is open. You don't have to pay any money for it. I don't know if that's gonna come out with the reward structure too, because right now Battlegrounds is just free to play and has no rewards. But maybe with open beta, we'll get an inkling of what their reward system is. It's also in beta right now, and we don't know when they're gonna consider Battlegrounds out of beta. But right now, very imbalanced. Very imbalanced. Like, go online, Google something, Google what you should do. Crip has a good list.
He does. Yeah.
Like, and he's like literally one of the top players, if not the top. I think is Tide still number one?
Tides is number one by far.
Tides is number one. Who's number two? Number two is like a Blizzard dev. Is it Chalky? It's Chalky. Okay.
Yeah.
I forget if it's Chalky or another one of the pro player Blizzard devs. But yeah, number two is Chalky, which is kind of unfair because he has a lot of insider information. But number two is Chalky. But Crip is top 10 definitely, and he like actually like writes stuff, and makes videos and stuff about it. So we'll keep you guys updated. But when it comes to us and Battlegrounds, we're really going to be analyzing, at least in the near term, from a non-top player perspective. I think hopefully in the next week or 2 or 3 I will have caught up to Merps in my understanding of the game, but we'll see if that happens. And my goal is really to be like on December 10th for this podcast, to be like, hey, I'm either top 200 or I'm like right on the doorstep to top 200 or something, right? So I have some authority to talk about this game, not like, hey, I'm 4,700 rank. You know, like, because right now this is I'm just talking more as a fan than a good player.
Yeah. But that's good. We need the fan perspective right now.
Mm-hmm. What do you know? I'm a filthy casual now.
Oh man, I've always thought of you as a filthy casual, so it doesn't change anything.
It just sucks that this game focuses on like the things that I suck at. It's APM. It's adding. It's not math, okay? I can do math in my head pretty quickly on percentages and stuff, like the odds and stuff. They don't mess with me. But adding 1 and subtracting 1 from many different numbers all at once, like that's not like you don't need to be smart to do that. You just need to be able to process many things at once and hold them in your head, which I'm incapable of doing. Positioning is somewhat important. Like I feel like I got the basics of positioning down, and the rest are really just like truly advanced stuff. But still, it like, you know how you're talking about, like, where to position the taunts so that the cleaves don't get stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Okay, and I don't plan on doing lost that. You a few games.
Yeah, but I don't plan on doing that for a while, because that takes too much of my time, and I need the time to finish my turn.
That's probably lost you a few games.
I only do that at the very end. Like, I prioritize scouting above that. I think I should, right? Would you prioritize scouting above cleave positioning?
No.
Really?
No. Get your own game plan done first.
Really? Yeah. Over scouting?
No, cleave is such a big part of the meta right now.
Really? Like I rarely face cleave.
Whether it's Foe Reaper from mechs or a buffed up Cave Hydra from Menagerie or Beasts, yeah, dude. And also your positioning.
I only start positioning after I get cleaved.
No. Like, this is the difference between you going like 4 or 5th versus 1st.
Okay.
Like, I'm serious. It's that big of a difference, cleave positioning. And you want to afterwards, like for scouting, get your own game plan done first. And then if you know sort of what the setup of this guy is. So once you get into like the top 4, top 3, you kind of know what the other person's setup is, right? Yeah. So if you're facing them again, and you see, and at that point, it's mind games, right?
But yeah, if I see a cleave, I'll start positioning around it. I just don't position around it before I see the cleave.
No, even before then. For example, like if you have a junk bot at the end, right? Let's say you're going mechs and you're going junk bot. What you want to do is you want to put a taunt 2 away from it, and you want to put like, let's say your Iron Sensei, or an insignificant minion between your taunt and the junk bot at the very end, such that your junk bot doesn't get cleaved.
Okay, and that's more important than putting my Iron Sensei at the very beginning, so it takes off a Divine Shield?
No. Well, I'm assuming at the beginning, you have your own divine shield or you have another fodder thing, right? I'm just saying, you're going to put something in between there. You can also put like a beefy minion there as well, but just don't put your junk bot there right next to a taunt. Like that's game losing potentially.
Okay, but if you had one Iron Sensei and the rest of your minions are real minions, would you put the Iron Sensei in the and let's say he has divine shield taunt and he has a cleave, would you put the Iron Sensei
I think it's that
position
important.
or in the very beginning?
No, I would put the Iron Sensei like between the taunt and the junk bot. You can't afford to let your junk bot get sniped.
Okay, but you could also just put another beefy minion between your.
Oh yeah, sure.
So
Yeah,
which would you do? Would you put the beefy minion in that like second to right position?
I need to know what your other minions are.
Just assume they're all beefy. Some of them have taunts.
Okay, and this is the mid to late game. This is like late mid game.
Late game.
Late mid.
You're not gonna have cleave minions until the late game.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, sure, I can put another minion. Like I can put like a.
But what would you? What's your default preference?
My default preference
is like about equal.
It's about equal. Okay. I have to see, right? I mean, like this gets to the point where I'm like, I can't really.
Okay.
But
so
yes,
anyway,
but no, it is actually super duper important. Like cleave is very like the meta right now is number 1 divine shields, number 2 like cleave is you have to keep it in mind. You have to keep divine shields in mind number 1, but cleave is definitely a huge part of it. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, that's okay. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm not good at, right? Like I've never been good at positioning.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not that good at ordering either, and ordering is like freaking like half this game. It like really annoys me how important ordering is. It's like I want to do all this stuff. Can we just get it done? Like, why do you have to do it in the correct order? Like that's a weird skill to test. Like all of these things are like, I mean, the positioning actually has more skill elements to it. So I never mind games that focus on positioning. If you remember in Duelist, I cared a lot about positioning because that game was all about positioning. But stuff like ordering, that's not. That's like, and like, adding 1 and subtracting 1. It's just like memorizing information, right? It's like, it's just a test of how many processes you can spin, like how many disks you can spin at once. And that's not, I don't know. It tests some kind of skill, but that's not the skill that I prefer games to be testing. It's like APM, right? Yeah, it does test the skill. Clearly APM is a skill. But it's not why I play strategy games, right? I also don't play strategy games to see how quickly I can add and subtract 1 from a number. These are not things I'm good at and not things I want to do. But they're very important in this game. So I gotta beef up my auxiliary processes.
They are very, very important.
Okay, cool. Very annoying. Okay. Anyway, we gotta end this podcast. It's been a long podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Talk more Battlegrounds. Until then, this is Adbukta.
This is Merp. See you guys.